Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we are into the final session of our symposium. It's been a very insightful day. What we had were some key insights by the key players of the industry here with us in the panel discussion earlier. Next up, may I also take this opportunity to invite Rubina Athar, the chairperson of the National Tariff Commission, to please join us up on the stage. Sajid sir, may I also request you to please be on stage with us. Mr. Sajid Aslam, our co-host for this symposium from the ACCA. May I also request the president of OICCI, Mr. Rayaz Khan, to please join us up on stage and be a part of this final panel for the symposium. Ladies and gentlemen, a very important subject. The final session is themed as the economic dividends of petrochemical sector development. I don't think you're trying to convert the converted already. No one in the room is going to have any doubts that there are going to be big dividends for not just the immediate future, but for decades to come. It's a multi-decade investment that we're looking at. To kickstart this particular session, our first presentation is titled as The Tariff Structures to Support the Industrialization. For this, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the chairperson of National Tariff Commission, Ms. Rubina Athar.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am, would you want to take the rostrum or would you be making...
I think I would rather like to...
Yes, please. Yeah,
thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon, and Assalamu alaikum. I think I'll be very brief because Advisor Saab is here and he would be the key person to answer your questions or queries and highlight the government policy regarding the industrialization and more specifically this petrochemical policy. I would just briefly introduce what the national tariff policy is, and particularly with reference to this petrochemical industry and right now the policy, how we are looking at it, and what we actually intend to give tariff incentives, which most of the investors right now have just mentioned. I think we all understand that industrialization is critical for rapid growth and development of an economy. And in the last many years, we have seen phases of industrialization and deindustrialization in the country. So it is very important to address this issue holistically and completely. Besides many other factors, tax and tariff structures and their implementation are crucial for industrial development. I think most of the panelists here have just highlighted it. It is a fact that manufacturing is taxed heavily in this country, be it income tax, sales tax, or custom duties. Manufacturing pays more tax than any other sector of the economy. While manufacturing constitutes 12 to 13% of GDP, its contribution in taxes is more than 50%. Tax policy and tax administration had not been able to broaden the tax net and bring sectors like agriculture, retail trade, or services into tax net. Resultantly, our tax structure is characterized by narrow base, high and distortionary tax rates, and complicated and non-transparent mechanisms and procedures. Low collection from this narrow tax base, easy manipulation by vested interests because of non-transparency, and tax evasion and tax avoidance due to high tax rates has kept overall tax to GDP ratio very low in this country. What we have seen in past many years is that this compels policymakers to increase tax rates in a desperate attempt to raise revenue, but this policy has always failed. Higher tax rates have always hampered industrial growth, and since collection is heavily dependent on manufacturing sector, high tax rates have reduced collection rather than increasing it. And at the same time, high tax rates have also made exports uncompetitive and in some instances created an anti-export bias. Now with this background, in 2019, the national tariff policy was designed to bring down the cost of manufacturing and improve competitiveness of the export sector in regional and global markets. Though there is dire need, and also emphasized by the panel right now, to simplify the sales tax and income tax structures to encourage industrialization, but at least with this policy, we have started this long journey by giving a transparent, predictable, and simple tariff structure, along with strong institutional mechanism. And I think this is the major change in the policy right now to formulate policy. Policy formulation is now, and has been rightly mentioned here, is now separated from policy administration. I think this is the big change that we have brought with this national tariff policy. And we have seen the encouraging results, and also the panel here has just spoke about it, that this policy is working and bringing some good results into the economy. Talking of the national tariff policy, the overall objective of national tariff policy is to first improve competitiveness of manufacturing, and at the same time increase employment opportunities, improve consumer welfare. I think this has never been discussed in public policy, how to improve the consumer welfare, because we always ignore consumer in our policy. And finally, to enhance exports, because this is the need of the hour. To earn foreign exchange, we need to enhance our exports. And to achieve these objectives, the strategy that we have been following for the last 2-3 years is to gradually reduce customs duty, additional custom duty, and regulatory duty. And at the same time, provide time-bound tariff protection to strategic and import substitution industry. And thirdly, to simplify tariff structure and procedures. And practically when we say this, we mean that tariff rationalization is both across the board and within the value chain of any particular industry. So in the last 3 years, what we have done is we have gradually reduced tariff to bring the average tariff down. And at the same time, we have looked at individual industries and tried to rationalize the tariff within the entire value chain. So this is, we are following a two-pronged strategy to bring down the average tariff down. Tariff is cascading. What we've been doing is right now, we are keeping cascading tariff. And the cascading is based not just on the normal protection, but on effective protection. And I think industry well understand when we say what we mean by effective protection. Simplification implies gradual removal of all SROs and schedules, and streamlining of all custom procedures, for instance, export facilitation, duty drawback schemes, or valuation schemes. So we're looking at all though it's a customs domain, but indirectly it affects the cost of importation or cost of manufacturing. So we are also looking at the custom procedures and systems also. So in the last 2 to 3 years, what I can summarize is that we have done the trade weighted average tariff for manufacturing trade-weighted average tariff for manufacturing has gone down from 7.5% to 5.5%. And this is mainly done because of the more than 2,000 tariff lines we brought to zero. We reduced the rate, we reduced the ACDs, we reduced the RDs, we reduced the tariff on 11% slab, 16% slab, 20% slab. We almost touched 85% of our tariff structure, which are 7,500 tariff lines. So we almost touched and keenly looked at, and tried to rationalize tariff on those tariff lines. Another, I think, important thing to be considered is that tariff is cascading, but right now this cascading is very steep. We have 0 minimum and we have 20 maximum. So in between there are 4 or 5 slabs. So this cascading is very steep. So this at some times gives huge effective protection to some manufacturing sectors like auto and iron and steel. It reduces consumer welfare and sometimes lead to anti-export bias in some cases. We have rationalized tariff on textile value chain, and we intend to do it for auto and iron and steel, and wherever high effective protection is identified. So this is our plan for this and the next year. Coming to the petrochemical industry and petrochemical policy, we all understand that's critical industry in any economy. Along with the iron and steel industry, it's actually provide base for many other industries in the country, like textile, pharma, leather, packaging, pipes, soap, detergents, etc. So it's base for many industries. The investment, whether greenfield or brownfield, would definitely bring a huge change in industrial sector and would generate employment. We have been meeting with the industry for a long time now, and we have very long discussions with them to fully understand what they are proposing and what they are expecting from government, which I mean is a fair and predictable policies. From the tariff incentive or tariff policy point of view, I think what we will look at is that plants are of world scale, which just mentioned that they are. We would also look at that industry is not overprotected, because as I said, we have seen the policies in previous time have inadvertently or advertently done that some industries are overprotected for a very long period. So I think our consideration would be that industry is not overprotected and for a very long period. We would also we would see that downstream industry is not hurt, and downstream industry also progress along with this midstream or upstream industry. And also, in due course of time, upstream and downstream industries are able to export. I think because import substitution has a cost, and if the economy bear that cost for a certain period, I think the benefit comes when it's able to export. So I think these are the 4 key areas or elements that while designing the tariff for this industry that we would look at. And we really appreciate this, this symposium, and I think it's a high time to have such kind of interaction and discussion involving all the stakeholders and the government, and we look forward to have a sound petrochemical policy and see this industry growing and prospering. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. And now, ladies and gentlemen, with the title that has been very promising, very intriguing to say the least, we have the subject of high GDP multiplier of petrochemical makes it a sector of choice for economic managers. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Advisor to the Prime Minister on Commerce and Investment. Please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Abdul Razak Dawood.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, distinguished diplomats, esteemed members of the business community, representatives of the public sector, panelists, Assalamu alaikum. Today I want to give an overview of what I feel that we should be doing as our industrial policy and how our industrial policy should move forward. Overall, the problems that we have faced, and this government, when it came in, it faced it, and we had to correct it. And that was, there was too much emphasis in our country on trading versus industrialization. It was a consumer-driven economy, mal mangao, bahar se, and when we run out of cash, borrow, and the world goes on. And there was this deindustrialization. Well, that is all stopped. We're now focusing correctly on industrialization versus deindustrialization. I'll give one shining example of putting your money where your mouth is, and that is, how did we stop one major area of trading, and now it is definitely clearly on the decline, and industrialization has started. And that is on the mobile phones. Pakistan was importing $1 billion of mobile phones. And it was all the KPIs coming in, under-invoicing, oh, this, that, the usual stuff. Now that has all stopped simply because we brought in a well-thought-out industrial policy on manufacturing mobile phones in Pakistan. Every month I see the figures, local production going up, imports going down, and a couple of months ago we actually crossed the line. We're now manufacturing more than we are importing. So this is going on. I'll come back to it a little later. So here is a shining example, having the right policies, get these KPIs out of the way, and bring in the industrialist. So that was one very important thing that was saying. The next thing was domestic commerce, important because it's import substitution, versus export-driven growth strategy. We will not progress as a nation if we do not get into the world of exports. I know import substitution is important because import substitution is the first step. You manufacture, get up to critical mass, and then you export. So by talking a lot about exports, and exports, it's not that I am trying to belittle import substitution. Import substitution is the first stage of that whole process. So now we have another issue of an industrial policy between import substitution and export-led growth. So now, when we say export-led growth, who are the winners? Who should we pick? We've learned from looking at the strategy by Korea, Malaysia, Japan, etc., that they did this by picking. You cherry pick. There's no such thing as you don't do it. Yes, a country like America can do it. They will not cherry pick anything. So we've been doing, historically, textiles, leather, rice, sports goods. These were our traditional ones. Well, this has gone on for too long. Today, textiles is important simply because we're in the IMF program, and if we're going to ever get out of this thing and get out of the program successfully and be in a sustainable position to keep the IMF off its exports. Now, everybody tells me that you talk too much about exports and you support the textiles a lot. Well, as I say, the fact of the matter is that I do this because we need the dollars and we need them yesterday. We all know that. We're all in business. However, I have said it to the textile people and I will say it again here. Textiles in the long run is not going to take us where we want this country to go. Textiles cannot be the main, number one, 60% of our export. Textiles cannot be that if we're talking of exports of $250 million. Textiles is important where we are right now. Purchase billion, these billion, that's not gonna get us anywhere. So textiles is not the answer. Why? It's not because there's something wrong with textiles. It's simply that worldwide, the textile industry is not big enough. Textile industry is under $1 trillion. So we can't, whatever we do, it's not going to take us to a very height. So who do we pick? If we just for a moment, just take our eye off textiles and leather and rice, who do we pick? There are 4 players who can really take us very far. Number 1 to me is IT. And finally, in this country, IT is now showing their muscle. They are today, even though textiles is growing by 35%, IT grew at 47%. And it's smaller, but in 10 years it'll catch up. So IT is number 1. And the other beauty of IT is they don't have the disadvantage of this sector where you need huge investments. You need an investment that will take 3 years, 4 years to implement. The hundreds and thousands of freelancers, etc., can do it without much investment. Next one is agriculture. Agriculture is an area which is now moving, and we're getting more and more of our exports coming through agriculture. But on the industry side, there are 2 major sectors. One is iron and steel. Number 2 is the sector that we're here for, petrochemicals. And it's the petrochemicals is, to me, a future provided we think long, provided we think well, and we strategize well. And in that strategy, neither the Ministry of Petroleum is the total soul of knowledge, neither is the Ministry of Industries, neither is the Ministry of Commerce. We individually cannot do it. It can only be a collective effort of these various ministries, including Ministry of Planning and you people. Then we can have a long one. I am here today not to propound what I think should be a policy. I'm here today to raise issues that have to be solved in this policy that we want to make. What are the areas, me being in the government for the last 3 years, what are the issues before us? The good thing about this industry and that is this industry has got a galaxy of professionals. It's got the depths inside their organization. It's fantastic. I mean, textiles is no match to you people. And I'm being open and blunt, no match. So now we've got to marshal that akal that's lying there in the organizations. You've got a people who can very quickly take over on the responsibilities. But what are the issues? The issues are, we learn from the PTA, ICI PTA plant that came up in the 90s. We learned a lesson from that, and that was that we give them protection. When does that protection go down? When does that protection become too much? When does that sunset clause come in? I'm not saying anything negative. I think the way the duty protection has come down, it's good. But now the same challenges are coming before us. Somebody comes up to me and naps the cracker. Somebody says, I want to put up a steel mill. The same issues are coming up. Honestly, I'd be very unfair to the country if we develop something to protect one industry, and then for the next 10 years we're in a mess because we have to distort all the downstream. So that is one area. What do we do? In this petrochemical, we've got to think. We've got the world's best plants. A couple of hours flying time from here. All the fabulous plants that are in the Middle East. Can we strategize with them that they're doing this and we start from a certain point? We don't have to go all the way. I don't know. Quite honestly, I'm erasing issues which you people have to tell us in the government. What should we do? One thing I have done, and I think it's the right way to do it, if a huge plant has to come up, polyethylene, polypropylene, naphtha, whatever you want, they must have in the country a good enough size of the market. We need that market. So one thing we can do, and we have done it, just reduce the duties on the end products right now. And let those products grow. So there's all the products that are coming out from polypropylene and from polyethylene and from PVC, etc., let them all create the demand, so that means a big plant comes up and they can feed it. But what is going to be the duty structure to give that plant the correct IRR that it deserves, and the necessary long-term policies which it deserves, and a proper policy on their taxation which it deserves. So those are some of the key issues that are quite honestly bothering me. Yesterday, we had a 4-hour meeting. All the stakeholders of the iron and steel sector, myself sitting with Rubina, grappling with all of them. Every stakeholder came in, right from the SIP breakers and the re-rollables and the billet people and auto sector people. They want to do this, etc., etc. The good news was, at the end of the 4-hour meeting, I think we're coming, the fog has cleared, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel. I would like to do the same thing with this sector. What do we do? How do we clear the deck So you people are absolutely sure as to where you're going to go. As I was coming in, I heard one of the speakers say that Pakistan may 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, और ये एक मुसीबत है हमारे लिए. Such बात है. Such बात है. I'm in the government, I'm telling you, such बात है. But it's breaking it down. It's inshallah, it will. That's what we've got to do. Don't do these things. Soch samajh ke karo, and then stick to it. And then we will, inshallah, be able to get through it. So what I want to do is there has to be a whole, unfortunately I did not hear all the speakers, but I do want to, I'll be sitting down with the necessary people to sit down and say, okay, what did they say? What are the ideas? What is the recommendation from this symposium? We must not waste the valuable man hours that have gone from all of you in coming to this conference. This is expensive time of our executives. It must not go wasted. And then we come up with a policy, the tariff policy, Rubina has talked a lot about it, and our policy to go forward. One thing that I am fighting is that all that valuable land in and around Bin Qasim and steel mill, it was a lot of it, can you believe it, was reserved for the textile industry. First thing I said, get it out. The last thing you want to do is put a whole bunch of textile units down there. They go somewhere else. And now I'm fighting it, I'm not all the way through yet, that all that has to be reserved for these 2 sectors, the steel mills and the petrochemical complexes, all of them. Because each of you, people say, 1700 acres, oh, बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है. 3-4 units आ जाएंगे, they need 200-300 acres. So what have you got? No, we've got to reserve all of it, because that is the only way 15 years from now, 25 years from now, our petrochemical industry will be internationally competitive. That's what we've got to do. Do things today where we'll reap the benefits many years from now. So that's what I have to say. Many challenges yet. Many, and I'll say it again, many man hours of work that we have to do to think. And those of you who are coming forward, and I know 1 or 2 are coming forward, we will assure you that long-term policy, that the land is available for you people in a competitive place, and that the policy, together with the duty structure, is fixed. We have made a good amount of changes in the tariff structure, and we were just talking about it the other day. It was interesting that I said, hey, nobody seems to be coming to the Ministry of Commerce anymore. Kya ho gaya hai? Is everything okay? The reason why they're not coming, because things are getting okay, and I'm very happy. You should be spending your time in your own corporate world rather than wasting your time coming to Islamabad, meeting the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, etc., etc. We give you the policy, you go ahead. Don't waste your time with people like myself. So that's what it is. This is a truly dynamic industry. And let's all work together in the coming weeks and months to put the thing in place and let this petrochemical and chemical, whatever, industry truly flourish, and let us say that 20 years from now, 25 years from now, I'll be gone into the other world. But then I hope that when I am up there and I see this industry flourishing, I will smile. Thank you.
Thank you, Raza Sahab. May Allah bless you with a long life and a healthy life. And it's more important, but I think what you've pointed towards is a very key question. What is going to be the legacy of each one of us is the onus every leader and anybody in any capacity to help the society, to help the country, must ask themselves. It's just not about our individual achievements, but what we leave behind. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout his presentation, we saw a number of people nodding and smiling. So I'm sure these key developments and the way the policymakers are thinking is something very close to your heart. But having all stakeholders in the room, it would be unfair not to open for a short session of question answers. Please raise your hands, or mic may be directed your way. Once again, I would request you to please make it a question and not long remarks. I see a hand go up. Please maybe direct a mic there. So please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Muin Bartley. I'm CEO of Think Build Scale Private Limited. Okay, so we've heard a lot of perspectives, and I think from the industry side, wanting protection, wanting stability of that protection, and then from the government side, you need to have just the right amount of protection which gets phased out. So you need that balance, and I don't think that there's been the discussion of how to arrive at that correct balance. So arriving at that correct balance in light of good examples globally, which other countries have done it and how have they done it, I think that's key. So my question is, how do we get the different stakeholders having different motivations, get them to everybody, government, private sector, to come to this problem and together to brainstorm and figure it out, how to get the right balance in light of global experiences. That is the crux of it, I think.
Whatever you said, that is the challenge. Now we have a few of our ministers in the government who are SMEs, subject matter experts in their respective fields. Asad Umar is one who knows the corporate sector very, very well. Shaukat Tareen on the banking side knows it well, etc., etc. Basically, it's our job to get the thing done and get all the necessary people. We know we'll have. We know that there are areas you've got issues you'll have with the energy ministry. You'll have issues with the FBR. You'll have issues in other areas. That's the excitement. That's what we have to do. Get it done and get it done correctly for you people. We will do it, inshallah.
Thank you so much for your question. There's another hand go up. Maybe please direct the mic to the gentleman in a white jacket.
Dawood Saab, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sohail Kiani. I'm an overseas Pakistani investor. You talked about petrochemicals and the steel industry and said that these are two very important, which I concur with you. Now, here's a very direct question. Right now, I'm doing a road show with the chairman of a steel company from Australia who wishes to set up a plant here or do a strategic alliance. But I have a very specific question because yesterday I went to meet the chairman of this new entity that your government has set up called the Exim Bank. So the question is this, sir, that proprietary technology transfer coming into Pakistan for the steel industry to make galvanized steel, which nobody else has in this region. Because you see, our bridges are falling down now after 30, 40 years because, the corrosion and rust, especially along the coast. Karachi, along the coast, because it's more corrosion.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, this technology lasts the steel industry, the rebars, for 130 years. Now, here's the question. If we set up a plant here and bring this technology here into a steel manufacturing unit and re-export that galvanized steel to China. By the way, the Chinese don't have this technology. Or to the Gulf Arab countries who don't have this technology. The chairman, he's going to be coming here any moment. I'd like to introduce you to him. He says to me, why should I set up in Pakistan? Why don't I set it up in India? Or in Dubai or Muscat? So I did not have an answer for that. Yesterday, when we went to see the Exim Bank, they didn't have an answer for it also. So my question to you specifically is, what will you tell this chairman who's willing to invest money and set it up here? What's his incentive to set it up here? Thank you.
Tell your investor that Pakistan will be very, very fair, open, and before he goes to anybody else, do give us a chance. You will find us very excited. We are prepared to go the extra mile. I'm prepared to go the extra mile because we don't want to lose. This is what you've talked about. I know a little bit about this industry, and please come over. We'll be only too happy to discuss with you. And if for any reason it is not feasible in Pakistan, whatever reason, we will be upfront with you. We would never try to hoodwink you. We'll be upfront. So we are excited. Please come over, and inshallah, we can work something out. Thank you.
I'd like to take a question from the other side of the room. Maybe please bring the mic to this table. May a mic be directed here? Thank you, sir. Please introduce yourself and ask a question. We'll come back.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Masood Anwar. I have spent 55 years in industry, including petrochemicals. My questions is very simple. 30 years ago, we were talking about naphtha cracker. We were visualizing it will come. Now all the experts are sitting here. What do we envisage as a timeline for the naphtha cracker to be seen here with tremendous downstream potential? My question is simple, sir. Looking for the answer.
Masood, you have asked a very, very good question on the naphtha cracker. And just like you, we have heard, the first time we heard of it, sometimes it was naphtha cracker, other times it was the hydrocracker. And the first time we actually heard it was during Ayub Khan's time. That was the first time when there was no steel mill, nothing was around. We were talking about the naphtha cracker. One thing I can say is I hear very positive things about the naphtha cracker, and I hear equally strongly a negative side of the naphtha cracker. So I don't know. I am hoping that this seminar, this group of people will come up and be able to give us an answer. Is the naphtha cracker in our interest or not? And if it is, how does it fit in with the other, the polyethylene, the polypropylene, all the other elements that we're looking at? somebody has to be able to tell us. I have in my office, and I used to look at it, a complete flow chart of all the products that can be made before the naphtha cracker, after the naphtha cracker, and how the whole thing moves. But somebody has to tell us that yes, we'll put this piece in, then you put this piece in, the duty structures must have a sunset clause, etc. I don't know it. So I hope that after this symposium, people will come forward and will be able to make a sensible policy in our interest. The one thing we don't want to do is, one, we cannot have a structure which does not have a sunset clause. And we don't want a structure where somebody can make a lot of money in the first 3 years, and then we're all looking at each other, what have we gone and done? So let's see. I look forward to you people.
Razak Saab, with your permission, I believe Riyas would also want to comment on this question. You good? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, there's another question by the lady in the brown jacket. If we can please have the mic directed to her. Ma'am, would you raise your hand so the person with the mic can see you? In the front row, please. That's a media mic. That's something you're not getting. But maybe one of the ushers could kindly get one. Ji, please.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. I'm Najma Minhas from Global Village Space. Razak Saab, I'm an absolute layman. I'm not very far from you here.
Okay.
I'm a layman, so I found this session earlier very interesting. And one thought that came to my mind from what Humair Ejaz, I think CEO of Lotto, mentioned, that his company stands exactly where it was 5 years ago here in Pakistan, whereas it's grown exponentially in different countries. So the thought came to my mind is, what is your ministry done in terms of regional research? Another example somebody has just given me is Reliance Industries has set up a 4 million ton plant, I think, in India. And the Indian government has given it, I think, 3-year tariff protection and so on. So what are your thoughts on this? And I really want to understand regionally, how much research have you done and how much of it will be implemented?
If I remember correctly, the comment Humair made was that they're at the same position they were there 25 years ago, not 5 years ago, right? So because they started at 400,000 tons and India was at 600,000 tons and China was at 5 million tons. China has gone to 55, India has gone to 7, and we've stayed at 400,000 tons. So it's a 2-decade problem. I think the question we have to ask ourselves is that the balance of payment crisis and the current account deficit that we have, the trade deficit that we have, as Pakistanis, we suffer because of it, but it's not a problem for the business, it's actually a problem for the country and the government. And one also needs to ask is that we are here as businesses crying out for a petrochemical policy. Why isn't the government convincing us as investors through a policy to invest more? It has to be a two-way street. And it should not be looked at as us wanting protection to make money. It has to be looked at as an incentive so that investment in the country can be made. So I think the reason why, coming back to your exact question, I think the reason why this hasn't happened is because over the last 3 decades, we have not been able to convert or come up with a policy for this sector which will provide that sense of security to local and foreign investors to come and make the kind of investments that are required. Because here we're talking about billions of dollars. And that's what I would have to say.
We'll take another question. The front row again. If a mic could be directed to Mr. Sameer
Yes,
Dosa.
please. Excuse me, miss.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Another part of the venue, so we're good with that. Please go ahead.
My name is Irfan Asghar, and I'm Vice President of Pakistan Chemicals and Dyes Merchants Association, North Zone. Sir, my question is that 2021 and 2022, these are the COVID years, and there are massive shortages due to fluctuations, shutdowns. I think it is not a good idea to expand on the basis of these 2 years. Let us focus what will happen after the COVID. Because China is going for a massive industrialization in petrochemicals. China is coming up. How do we see? Because these all raw materials will be imported, and we have to depend this industry on imported raw materials. Sir, we have one of the biggest salt ranges with us. Why don't we explore our minerals so that we are not dependent on any imported raw material? Sir, these chemicals are used for the downstream industry. We should focus that it should not add inflation to the economy, because we must keep a regulation that our prices offered are at par with the international market in the local market. So, sir, this is my question. I think when making these policies, these points should be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you for raising these points, but yours is not really a question, but if anybody in the panel would like to respond to that, sir?
You know, on the mineral side, there's no doubts about it, that one of our biggest problems has been that, unfortunately, minerals has become a provincial subject. And so when you approach them, they get into a completely different style and structure. So the minerals have not developed. As far as something being manufactured based on imported raw materials, now I can say with my hand on my heart that about 60% of industrial raw materials are coming into the country duty-free. So if they are, then I think I would say that the government has done their job. And now it is up to the chemical industry, the petroleum industry, petrochemical people to find out what is that segment and look at it. So it is, I'm trying to get the government out and leave a playing field for you people to play. So that's what I feel. And you people come forward, and when you see hundreds of one tragedy in a way, tragedy not in another way, that when we had turf come out, bulk of the turf benefit was taken by the textile. How many chemical people were there? How many others were there who could have taken advantage of it? But they didn't. And when turf closed, that was it. And the main beneficiaries was the textile industry. Now I'm saying to the State Bank, it was an excellent scheme. Let us improve it, that whenever you do this again, make it sectorial. Put your money, give the working capital loans, give the long-term loans based on sectors that you want to develop and cherry pick. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll probably take one last question before we close this symposium.
Excuse me, Ji.
There's several to choose from, but since Amir Saab has stood up, for the rest of you, maybe request you, oh, there's another mic that a gentleman already has. If the two of you could share time and have brief questions, then maybe we can accommodate both.
Very short. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Samir Dosal, and I'm the president of the Canada-Pakistan Business Council. Wanted to just mention, this is phenomenal, what I went through today and what I learned and what's happening. Tremendous opportunities, amazing discussions. People like Riaz, people like Asfaras, and a whole bunch of people bringing in depth of knowledge. My suggestion and my thought process is for you to consider not taking away anything on the expertise of the people sitting here. There are millions of overseas Pakistanis outside who would be able to contribute without asking for remuneration towards helping create this policy. And perhaps that's something that Asfar Bhai could take an initiative, and you can take an initiative to lead to this, to explore technical expertise from people who are Pakistani origin, who would want to give back to the country and give back to Pakistan. So I think that's probably something to be addressed, perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir Saab, for that. For Shukriya, maybe take the last question of the symposium.
My name is Haris Ahmed. I'm working with JS Group. My question is with Mr. Ghyas. We have talked and listened a lot on the naphtha cracker and the Lotte chemical plant, the previous experience we have. We have some challenges with the PVC also when it is in the initial stages. My question is why we have not considered, the Anglo has not considered a cracker. First of all, now it's not the naphtha cracker, it's a mixed feed cracker. Naphtha cracker to be used since last couple of years or maybe a decade ago. But due to the availability of low cost ethane from US, China is importing around 9 million tons of ethane. Why we cannot import 1 million ton of ethane for our cracker in Pakistan? Why the cracker serves you or gives you all the feedstocks which you need? First of all, it has a synergy with you for your PVC plant. It gives you ethylene. It can give you a propylene, and it also can give you a PX for the Lotte. If Lotte is going to expand, it will need more than 500,000 tons of PX in the next coming years. You are still importing around 100,000 tons of ethylene. And we are focusing only on the PP, polypropylene, though it's a growing market, we know, but there are big players coming in around Pakistan. UAE has already setting up a 1.8 million tons of mega cracker, the world mega cracker in Buruj. And they have also a next stage, Taziz, coming up with 1.6 or 1.7 million tons of cracker. So all these are going to produce propylene. They are focusing now propylene on that. Then Petronas has a joint venture with Saudi Aramco, and they are also going to produce some 900,000 tons of propylene. By 2025...
Harisa, what we are hearing is, of course, the success stories of many collaborations, and I believe your question is why such an avenue is not being explored. If you can kindly come to the question, there's one more in the waiting.
My question is, there is better synergy for Anglo to consider a cracker instead of a standalone technology for this PPS.
You've made a strong case, sir. We'll let Riaz Saab respond to it. Bahut shukriya.
Thank you very much for your question. I think the point that was made earlier, I don't know whether this one. The point that was made earlier was that Pakistani market right now, because of a number of consideration, the market size for the product, the size of investment, the policy framework which is in place is better suited for producing polypropylene. The world is now going towards, moving more towards demand centers where ethane is used to produce polyethylene and propane is being dehydrogenated to produce polypropylene. That is now the go-to technology. It's very true that naphtha cracker will produce a much wider range of products, but Pakistan will probably reach that level where that entire range of products, including aromatics, will be used by the downstream much later. If you go with a typical naphtha cracker right now and a standard configuration, you will have to re-export about 35 to 40% of the products produced. Whereas if you go for a PDH technology, majority of the product, the only product that comes out of it is polypropylene. It allows you to put up a global scale facility and achieve the goals that we want to achieve. But you have a great question. Perhaps we can reconnect after the symposium as well.
Thank you so much for that, Riaz. We have one last question requested by Mr. Anjum Nisar. And this will be the absolute last question, I promise you.
Thank you. My name is Anjum Nisar, former president of FPCCI. My question to the Honorable Advisor, Razak Daud Saab. Sir, there is a great potential because the demand is very much there in the country. So there is a great, one can say that industry can be, investment can be done. But sir, the bottlenecks, if we unable to rectify the bottlenecks, I believe the problem will carry on with the existing industry as well as we will not achieve the goals. My question is that with the Khyber, that is 9.75%, and the energy prices, can we compete with the rest of the world? We need to address this problem. Otherwise, I think despite of having room to invest in Pakistan, we will follow the same thing what we have been doing in the past. So Khyber 9.75% and twice the rate of your energy. That is a big bottleneck for the existing industry and the industry to come in the near future.
Bahut shukriya, Anjum Saab. May I request Razak Saab to respond?
Is that what your main concern is?
Energy and financing cost.
Energy and financing. As far as the energy part of it is concerned, I think you are as knowledgeable as any of us. We know Pakistan is not a low-cost energy country. For us to get into a low-cost, becoming a low-cost energy country, it will take us a decade or two, or maybe at least a decade to get into a position where we've got the wind power coming in, we've got the hydro coming in, and some of the payments for the IPPs are gone. So that's a problem on its own. The other one is a more valid question that you've raised, and that is the financing. Yes, we are strapped for financing. We're a country that needs financing in every single sector, whether it's the SAS program, whether it's utility stores, whether it's supporting the farmers, etc., etc. So whatever we have available is less. I think the state bank governor, under some very difficult conditions of the COVID, did some very smart moves forward and helped in financing. We are always talking with the governor, and I think we are having some ideas to be put forward into the budget. Allah kare, that we can get it done. But both the points are absolutely valid. Thank you.
Bahut shukriya, Razak Saab. And ladies and gentlemen, I see a number of you keen to ask questions or at least make a statement. I have to regretfully decline, as in the interest of time, we now would like to wrap up this session. Once again, may I request all the gentlemen and ma'am on the stage to please step forward, as we'd like to present some mementos before we call it a close. For this, may I request Mr. Mohammad Asfaresan to do the honors. We'd first want to present our memento to the Honorable Ma'am Rubina Athar Sahiba. She is indeed the chairperson for the National Tariff Commission. May I request Sajid Saab to please come in for this photograph too. Thank you, ma'am. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank and present a small token of appreciation to the Honorable Advisor to the Prime Minister on Commerce and Investment, Mr. Abdul Razak Dawood. May I request the Chairman POI to do the honors. May I also request Mr. Riaz Khan to come in for a photograph for this one. Thank you to ACCA for being our co-host. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pakistan Petrochemical Symposium was hosted by the corporate Pakistan Group that we commonly and popularly know as the CPG.